I kind of regret not doing an Encanto review. Maybe I should still do it. So I didn't want to miss out on reviewing Turning Red. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Santini. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. Today I wanted to give my general review about Turning Red, the newest Pixar movie. I don't always do these huge mainstream reviews in movies, but I had some thoughts about Turning Red, and it was one of the main things I watched this past weekend and really enjoyed. So I wanted to talk about it with y'all, see if you watched it. First, I'm going to get into my is it worth watching and about section, sort of behind the scenes about the movie. Then I'll go into a recap, and then finally I'll talk about the overall themes I noticed. With this movie in particular, I noticed a lot of like big thematic elements to it. There's one that's more literal, but there's a few themes that you can explore when interpreting this movie. So let's get into it. Is Turning Red worth watching? The movie is available on Disney Plus if you're wondering. It's about a young Chinese Canadian girl in 2002. I think the strongest parts about it that won me over, it honestly has a very different feeling for Pixar. It's a little more edgy. So if you're an adult like me, you probably are, it's a little more grown up compared to other Pixar movies. It's not quite so G-rated. It kind of pushed the boundaries on what I expected from Pixar, and honestly a lot of times shocked me, and in a good way, in a great way, honestly. I think it's a welcome change for Pixar, and it really gave the movie a unique voice that didn't feel just like a generic Pixar movie. And I think because it was able to push more boundaries, it had really great humor, really great comedy in it. It was a lot more relatable, more realistic. So I recommend it in that sense. Plus, because it's set in 2002, there's a lot of elements of nostalgia in it that are really cute. It's cute to see a Pixar interpretation of the 2000s, the early 2000s. So I think the comedy and nostalgia mixed together are some of the best parts, as well as the art direction and look and feel of the whole movie was amazing. Like, I like this new trend in animation of keeping human characters looking cartoony and like how they're designed, but at the same time having really beautiful graphics, like having really beautiful like fabric textures. And oh my god, there's this one food scene that's just like, you will drool watching the food scene. Like, it looks so real and so beautiful. It's just like, ugh. The graphics are amazing while still keeping the heart of animation, which I think is like bending reality and having cute character design that isn't like realistic. It's not live action Lion King, you know. There has been a little bit of controversy around this movie. I don't think it's real or significant. It just went viral because it was so ignorant. But there was this review going around about Turning Red and saying that it was for an extremely narrow audience. Some critics said that it seemed like it was just for the filmmaker and her friends to enjoy. The review was so ridiculous that it became a meme to say this about anything. Turning Red might work well for the intended audience, but I am not in that audience. It's just like, it's a very dramatic review. Here it is if you want to check it out. I don't agree with this review. I do relate to the girl. The movie explores themes around like puberty and growing up a little bit. It explores finding your independence as a young teen, basically. It is through the lens of a 13-year-old girl, so I think women might relate more to this movie, but I don't think it's that narrow. I don't think the scope is that narrow. This critic got roasted appropriately online for this, so like I don't think there's any validity to this review, but I related to the movie a lot and did enjoy it for that. It shows a female character that's a young girl, and she's real. She's awkward and she's confused, and it was extremely relatable. So I recommend it. It has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, 8 out of 10 on Metacritic. So overall, been getting pretty good feedback. So I say it's worth a try if you haven't tried it out already. Let me get into About Turning Red. On Disney Plus, there is a documentary special that accompanies the movie. Girl, when I tell you, I want this for every single movie. I would love to have a freaking documentary for every piece of media I watch of behind the scenes making it. I don't know, I just have that fascination ever since I was a kid, and DVDs had special features. Like, I was all up in the special features watching the costuming, about the cast interviews. I live for that content. I love that Disney Plus is doing this. I hope it becomes more of a trend. I know it won't happen for every single thing I watch ever, but I think big movies like this, it's worth it to invest in like a little behind the scenes thing, especially because DVDs always had something or other like that, and now with streaming, that's a big lost art that our society has, like the behind the scenes content that we used to get with our DVDs. I hope this becomes more common as time goes on. So I watched the documentary of the special. I recommend you watch it if you like that type of stuff. And I learned a lot about the movie. I learned that it is an all-female leadership team, which is like unheard of, basically. A lot of them talked about how strange and amazing it was, because it was literally these women with like decades long careers at Pixar or just in the industry. This is the first time they had an all-female team. And I think it really comes through in the movie and how delicately the female character stories are told. So the movie was directed and written by Domi Shi, who is the writer and director of the animated short Bao. This was an Oscar-winning Pixar short a couple years back. I don't know the exact year. Oh God, this short this will make me bawl my eyes out in 2 minutes or however 5 minutes. I don't know how long they are. I recommend it if you haven't watched it. So this makes sense, and she brought on the same production designer she had for Bao. Them as a team, both of them. This was their first feature film. They talked about that experience in the documentary, and Lindsay Collins was the main producer. A lot of this movie was also made during the pandemic, and you got to see that in the documentary special of how they were working from home for most of it. You see a little bit of their home lives. Also, I think the voice cast was also really good. The cast reflected their characters, which is like step one of showing representation, but it's sometimes an issue when you have like a diverse set of characters and then behind the scenes the voice actors are not diverse at all. Rosalie Chang played May. She seems to be kind of a newcomer to the scene, but she did a great job. It's a very big personality character. And Sandra Oh played Ming, who is the main character's mom and a big character in the movie. Also, shout out to Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, who is the lead of one of my favorite Netflix shows, Never Have I Ever. She played the voice of one of the best friends of May. Priya was her name. I found it interesting because her character was like really subdued, and in Never Have I Ever she plays a character that's a lot more like May, the main character of this movie. So it was interesting to see her in a different vibe and emotion. This movie actually had a lot of influences from Domi Shi's own life growing up. It seems like the character is a little bit based on her own self growing up in Toronto. They try to implement a lot of the 2000s nostalgia. Like I said, we see Tamagotchis and we see boy bands. There's a fictional boy band in the movie that is called Four Town, and the few songs that showed up in the movie by them were actually created and written by Phineas and Billie Eilish. Kind of cool. They've been doing a lot of movie stuff lately, like good for them, I guess. Also, a key interesting part of the production of this is that there was a lot of influences from anime. The creators mentioned in the documentary that they were just inspired by what they were into growing up, and they were really into Sailor Moon, and that was one of their biggest inspirations. It's interesting to see these anime elements through like the lens of Pixar. You see like the big eyes when one of the girls sees a crush, or you see like sweat on their forehead and then dissipate quickly. There's a lot of like comic book type elements. Also more like choppy movements in certain points instead of having motion blur when the characters move. So I really loved the anime aesthetic they added in. I mean it's very trendy, plus it's just cool, and this movie really feels different for Pixar. It feels like a step into a new direction. I feel like everything previous to this has stayed pretty safe thematically and like also structurally. They really pushed the boundaries both of the content and what they could do with the look and production of it, and like adding these new animation elements that we haven't seen before in Pixar. So let me get into the plot recap. Feel free to skip this if you're not interested. Turning Red follows our main character, May, who is a 13-year-old Chinese-Canadian girl living in Toronto in 2002. She has a close relationship with her mom, though her mom, whose name is Ming, is super strict and overprotective. May often tries to make Ming proud of her. She helps out at her family temple, which the temple is dedicated to their ancestor named Sun Yi, who comes in to play later. Because Ming is so overprotective, May hides parts of herself that her mom might not approve of, especially her love for this boy band, Four Town. Her and her squad of friends are all obsessed with Four Town. Definitely reminds me of my obsession with One Direction back in high school, which sounds normal now, but in high school, I was definitely made fun of for being a Directioner. Like, it was not cool. It was back in the indie music time. So anyway, I relate to these girls liking One Direction, you know. May has these 3 quirky best friends named Miriam, Priya, and Abby. May also has this recurring bully named Tyler at school. And she has a crush on this convenience store clerk called Devin. One night, Ming... It's complicated, but Ming embarrasses May in front of her crush and her friends and other people from school. And that night, that trauma gives her very intense nightmares. And then she wakes up the next morning as a huge red panda. Very cute character design they had for the panda. It's very, that one Pokemon. So she wakes up as a giant red panda and she freaks out and hides in the bathroom from her mom. And she gives the excuse to her mom that she got her first period. So the mom is outside the door, like freaking out, like, oh my God, it's so early, what? Which this was the part where I was like, whoa, this is new for Pixar to talk about periods in a way that felt very natural and normal, and like I'm so used to periods being so stigmatized that like I was like, oh my God, Pixar. So that was cool. And the mom was like, I'm gonna bring you some pads, you know, whatever, and brings her pads. And the mom never sees her as the panda. She just comes in quick and gives her pads. May realizes that when she calms down, she becomes human again. Anytime she has a strong emotion, she'll pop up as a panda again. When she calms down and like kind of meditates, she comes back to being human. She finds out how to stay human and gets driven to school. Her mom knows she got her first period that day, so later in class, May notices that her mom is outside the window spying on her to make sure she's okay on her day of her first period. All of the class sees the mom because the mom's getting in trouble with the security guard, so it makes this big fuss, and everyone sees that May's mom is there, and it's so embarrassing for May, and that embarrassment makes her turn into the panda again. Luckily, no one sees, except her mom outside the window sees the panda and is like, shit, like she knows what's happening. Both May and the mom run back home. So back home, Ming explains that this is some sort of generational blessing slash curse that all of the women in the family have to go through. Their ancestor Sun Yi was the first to have this blessing in order to protect and fight battles back in ancestor times. But nowadays it's more of a dangerous inconvenience. But the mom explains that there is a cure, that they have to perform a ritual under the red moon, which is in about a month. With that ritual, they will seal the spirit of the beast into like some talisman or some necklace or something. Then May won't have the power to turn into it. After this, May's friends accidentally stumble upon the red panda and find out about the whole thing. May was supposed to not let anyone know, but she wasn't able to hide it. But the friends are actually kind of into it. They're like, this is so cool and cute because it's a really cute animal. The acceptance from the friends kind of gives May this realization that when she thinks about her friends and their love and acceptance, she is able to control the transformation better. She tells her parents that she has it under control, and they give her a bunch of tests to see if she does, and she actually does. And the parents are kind of impressed, and they're like, okay, fine, you can just live your normal life then for now until the ritual. We find out that Four Town is having a big concert coming up, and the 4 friends really want to go see them, but they have no money. And also May her mom had said no to go to the concert. They're trying to figure out ways to fundraise, even though it's against their parents' wishes to go at all. They figure out that the kids at the school would love to spend time with the panda and take pictures with it. So they decide to basically sell meet and greets with May as the red panda to other kids at school, which is totally a genius idea. Eventually, the bully, Tyler, hires May as the panda to come entertain at his birthday party and pays her like the remaining amount that we need for the 4 tickets. They need $800. But at Tyler's party, she finds out that the show, they actually had the date wrong this whole time, and the show is on the same day as the ritual that she needs to be at with her family. So this makes her really upset and out of control, and she accidentally attacks Tyler as like the panda. So it's like, it gets very dangerous. Tyler's parents call up her mom, and she has to be taken away by her mom. The mom, Ming, yells at her friends because she thinks the friends are to blame for this whole idea. And the friends are telling her like, no, we all came up with it together. And May stays quiet. She doesn't defend her friends against her mom. We assume it's because she's afraid of like losing her mom's approval even further. But it's a sad moment because her friends are getting all of the blame. Finally, May's grandmother and aunts come through to help out with the ritual. It's the day of the concert and ritual, and they try to perform it, but once May is about to split from the panda spirit, she decides to not split from it and keep the panda, and then she runs away to the concert. As she's running away, she actually damages the talisman of her mom, releasing the mom's panda beast. The mom is now angry that she's not following through with the ritual and that she ran away, and the mom then turned into her red panda, which ends up being this Godzilla gigantic sized version of the one that May is. And she interrupts the concert to have this fight with May. All of the family is coming to try to do the ritual now on the mom because the mom's way more dangerous, and she needs to split from her spirit now. This is the climax. They have a huge battle, and May is trying to fight for her independence and knocks out the mom, which is really sad. And then all of the grandma and the aunts end up having to transform themselves and break their spirits out and help because the panda is so huge. So eventually they get the mom in the ritual, and they actually get help from the boy band to sing, which was cute. All of the women end up meeting in like the astral plane where all the panda spirits are, and they all split off from their pandas and have kind of their heart-to-heart moments. Ming mends her relationship with her own mother, and May tries to mend her relationship with her mom, sees the vulnerabilities behind the way she acts. And ultimately, May is the only one that decides not to split from her panda spirit and keep that power indefinitely. By the end, she has a little bit more independence and a better relationship with her mom. So let me talk about the themes that I saw emerge throughout this movie. Actually, the whole time I felt like I didn't know where it was gonna go next, which is kind of cool. Like, I feel like I always try to guess what's gonna happen, and this time I was just along for the ride and I did not know where it was gonna go. The main theme, and the one that the creators mentioned in the documentary, was the theme of puberty and growing up. That's the main metaphor of what the red panda is. The whole title, Turning Red, it's evocative of red, period, you know. Like, the whole beast of the red panda is a metaphor for being more stinky and more hairy, and the red symbolism of periods. It felt like there was a bit of sexual awakening moments in this, though it was subtle. It wasn't like overtly stated, but there were moments where May draws like a boy and she's like confused about why she's doing that, and it feels like a indirect sexual awakening. And that's what I'm talking about when I said it felt like a more edgy Pixar. It was kind of cool. These crushes she has feel a little bit like, oh, she's just getting these feelings for the first time. Yeah, the beast is a metaphor for the beast of puberty, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is one of the most awkward times in a girl's life, and it makes for a compelling story. It also comes with the whole wanting more independence. This is around that age where a girl desires to branch out more. So that was the big inspiration for the creators, and they talked about like, yeah, the beast represents puberty, straight up. But I did notice some other themes that are all kind of intertwined with this, but at the same time were things that resonated with me. I think the theme around mental health was a lot for me. Like, I also saw the red panda a little bit as like a metaphor for like anxiety and shame, which can go along with puberty, but there were just so many moments of intense embarrassment and shame for May, that it felt like that was some trauma, and the red panda was like the trauma response to going through such a hard thing, especially because we don't really get a big explanation why she turns into the panda that morning in particular, aside from the night before being one where her mom really embarrassed her. I feel like it was trauma that triggered the red panda coming out, which to me seems kind of like a bit of a metaphor for just general anxiety. Also, the way the red panda curse is passed down through generations, that's also reminds me of how mental health issues can be passed down. Like, I feel like I was raised under a lot of anxious feelings, like overprotectiveness. Now I'm anxious because my mom was anxious and my grandma was anxious, and I grew up thinking, you know, everyone's out to harm me and it's a scary world out there, and I don't blame them. It kind of is for women, but that anxiety kind of gets passed down generation by generation. You could also make the connection of generational trauma and how that's passed down, and the red panda being some sort of symbol for that as well. Especially for immigrants, I think this story speaks to us a lot. Although I am not Chinese or Canadian, I'm Mexican American, I resonated a lot with May and her family, and just being in a place where your culture is different at home versus school or outside your home. So there's a lot of like unique mental health related struggles that come with being an immigrant or a child of immigrants, that you feel like you have to make the struggle worth it. And I think that was a big core part of May, always wanting to live up to her mom's expectations or exceed expectations, always wants to make her mom proud, because May isn't like a rebellious teen type character at all, or someone trying to actively like antagonize her parents. She's wanting to make her parents happy. She can only do so much, and it becomes this perfectionist thing. And you see Ming have the same issues of wanting to be perfect for her own mother. So it's like this never-ending cycle of like wanting to be perfect and that being impossible, and therefore damaging your own mental health. So I really related to this. I love how nowadays the movies are about generational trauma, like Encanto. That was the same thing. I'm living for it. I relate, and that definitely hit close to home. So although the red panda symbolized puberty in a more literal sense, I also interpreted it as like the passing down of these mental health troubles, or just this anxiety that comes with either being an immigrant or having just a really high family expectations. Also, a quick thing about the character being an immigrant, I loved how the family came in, the grandma and the aunties. The camaraderie of family is really strong, and I loved seeing that depicted. That's kind of more like the positive side of the coin versus a lot of these negatives of like anxiety and living up to expectations and being perfect. There's also like this big camaraderie and like of coming together and helping someone in need that's in your family. Also, there were moments about the red panda that also felt like, I guess this is tied to puberty, but it's kind of also about gender and sexuality to me, because there were moments where the red panda felt kind of like a metaphor for potentially being LGBTQ+ in a family that you haven't come out to yet or something. The red panda was this thing that May had to fight and hide and suppress, and at school or with her friends, it felt kind of like chosen family and the power of chosen family, when she could think of her friends and their unconditional love for her, and that being how she could control it. Like, it felt like something that her real biological family wouldn't understand, and only her friends would. So I think there is something there. You could read the panda as like an interpretation of sexuality and gender, because there is implied sexual awakening moments. But yeah, I kind of related a little bit to hiding parts of yourself from your family, and finding people that you don't have to hide those things from. It's not just exclusively about LGBTQ+, it could be about neurodivergence. That's something I related to. But there was just something interesting about how the red panda was celebrated at school. Like, all of the kids wanted pictures with the panda. They wanted to be with May and have fun with the panda. And at home, the panda was suppressed and seen as dangerous. If you think of it through the lens of like, this is someone's sexuality perhaps, that they can be free more at school, depending if it's an inclusive environment at school or they have friends that are inclusive. It's not the main theme or the main interpretation, but I think you can read that if you want to. Or I read it as that, and I related to that as well, having to suppress parts of you to your family versus in the outside world being able to flaunt them and be celebrated for them. So those are my thoughts on Turning Red. Those are the general themes that I thought about. I would love to hear what you thought of the movie in the comments below. Overall, I really enjoyed it and really related to it. Despite being very different from the main character, I felt very much like I was that girl. I wasn't as extroverted. I was Priya, honestly. In the friend group, I was Priya. Let me know in the comments below which of the friend group you were. I would love to hear about it. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos twice a week about TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things. And you can follow me at Miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.